Well, for more, we can cross now to our regional correspondent, Gulliver Cragg. Gulliver, this so-called interview with Roman Protasevich does happen in the context of an ongoing crackdown on dissent in Belarus, doesn't it?
Yes, first of all, I think it's worth drawing attention to Roman Protasevich's wrists, which are visible when he puts his head in his hand. He cries at the end of that so-called interview, and it's clearly visible from his wrists that they were at the very least very tightly bound. So there's every reason to suppose that he was subjected to violence and that what he said in this so-called interview was essentially dictated to him, especially because violence appears to be the standard procedure for Belarusian security services and throughout the Belarusian justice system. There are lots of other examples and ways in which Belarusian political prisoners are trying to draw attention to it. On Tuesday, 41-year-old political prisoner who was accused of running another Telegram blog, Stepan Latipov, actually stabbed himself in the courtroom where he was on trial with a pen, which meant that he did eventually survive. But clearly this was in order to draw attention to his plight. Earlier on, he had been heard telling his father that he had been threatened with physical punishment if he didn't confess. Stepan Latipov survived. Another political prisoner, Dmitry Stachovsky, who was a teenager, actually killed himself last week. So that brings, I think, the total number of people who've died since the start of protests in August 2020 to 10, if I'm not mistaken, though figures do vary on that. There are more than 400 medium to long-term political prisoners now being held in Belarus for activism, participation in mass rallies, and increasingly for activities related to journalism. Laws on journalism in Belarus were actually tightened even after this incident with the plane that Roman Protasevich was on. It's now actually officially illegal in Belarus to cover any kind of protest, for example. The largest independent news site, Tutbai, has essentially been shut down. At least 15 of its journalists have been detained and charged with tax evasion. It's somehow struggling on Telegram and trying to put stuff out on other platforms, but its activity is very much diminished. One independent media, though, that does survive is Nasha Niva, and it's just put out a historical colour supplement magazine devoted to Nelson Mandela, who served 27 years in prison before his aim of ending apartheid in South Africa was finally achieved. I don't think that that is a coincidence. Perhaps it gives you an idea of the mood among Belarusian oppositionists at the moment.
And Gulliver, what are Belarusian oppositionists in exile trying to do about this ongoing crackdown on dissent?
Mainly, they're calling for tougher sanctions from the European Union against Alexander Lukashenko's regime. Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, the opposition leader, who many people believe won last year's presidential election in August 2020, if she hadn't been deprived of that victory by fraud, she's in Warsaw at the moment, and she held a rally on Thursday, which looked like, from the pictures I saw, thousands of people attended, mostly Belarusians living in Warsaw. Belarusians in Warsaw are also protesting in front of the European Union's offices in the center of the city. Women there are drawing attention to EU-based companies that are doing business with Belarus by writing the logos of those companies across their chests, hoping to encourage a boycott of them. And also today, some Belarusian opposition leaders based in Poland are heading to the Polish-Belarusian border to stage a protest there, also calling for much tougher sanctions. Some, though, do question what kind of economic sanctions on the country would work, whether broad sanctions might hurt the people more than Lukashenko. And some have been saying that it's actually the United Kingdom rather than the European Union that should be taking the most action, with the City of London freezing financial assets of Lukashenko and his inner circle. Some are saying that that's the thing that might hurt the most.
Gulliver Cragg in Kiev, thank you very much.